Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the HISKI discussion entitled Suwarsi Joyo Puspito, Life with an Ideal. This discussion is hosted by Himpunan Sarjana Kesusastraan Indonesia or HISKI, Komisariat Universitas Sanata Dharma. Entitled Suwarsi Joyo Puspito, Life with an Ideal. This discussion is hosted by Himpunan Sarjana Kesusastraan Indonesia or HISKI. My name is Eva, and I will be the master ceremony for today. First of all, I would like to greet our honorable guests. We are so privileged to welcome our speaker, Mr. Hans Fischer, an independent researcher from HISKMAR. We are also pleased to welcome our respected online participant at Zoom and offline participant at Kadarman Room today. Before we begin the discussion, let us ask for God's grace and blessing so that our today's discussion will run smoothly. The prayer will be done in the Christian way. Those of you who have different faiths are invited to adjust accordingly. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the love and grace you have always bestowed upon us all this time today. We especially need your love and grace so that we can convene our HISKI discussion successfully. Please bless the speaker, moderator, and participants. May we be empowered to work collaboratively to make this discussion a happy and rewarding. We ask this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. To begin the HISKI discussion, I will inform the sequence of the discussion. The first is opening and greetings. Second, welcome note from the chairperson of HISKI Komisariat Universitas Sanata Dharma. Third, presentation and discussion. Fourth, photo session. And the fifth, closing. And now I would like to invite the chairperson of HISKI Komisariat Universitas Sanata Dharma to convey the welcoming speech. Bapak Dr. Gabriel Fajar Sasmita Aji, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bu Eva. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, we are very happy and excited to have all of you in this forum. This is the first event of HISKI USC. I mean, after the new, what is it? What you call it? The members of HISKI UST. And I like to thank Bu Dewi, who has initiated this study for us. And also to Mr. Hans Fischer and Pak Oda as the moderator later. It seems like family gathering, yeah? Okay. But from this, we can have something better. You know that we are discussing manusia bebas, yeah? Manusia bebas, and the topic that we have chosen a life with an ideal, yeah. I guess there is something, I mean, a new perspective in discussing manusia bebas. And also thanks to Bu Eni in arranging this forum for us. Yeah. Finally, then let's open our mind to have the new perspective on manusia bebas by a life with an ideal. Thank you.
Thank you, Bapak Gabriel Fajar Sasmita Aji. Ladies and gentlemen, now let us proceed to the presentation and discussion session. We will listen to the talk delivered by Mr. Hans Fischer, an independent researcher from HISKMAR. The talk will be moderated by Bapak Oda Tedaena, MPD, EDD. So without further ado, I will invite the moderator and the speaker for the discussion session. Please give applause.
Okay, so thank you very much, Bu Eva. Good morning, everyone. So also good morning, everyone on Zoom. We have quite a bit of participants from Zoom. So as it was mentioned previously, today is a discussion led or organized by HISKI. And Hans Fischer will be starting the discussion, and then we will have, of course, it's not seminar, but it's more in the form of discussion. So Hans will be presenting about Swarsih Jayapuspito, and then we'll have question and answer sessions, and then that's basically the program. So I think this is a very good opportunity for all of us to listen to Hans' talk, because as we know now, with the advancement of technology and especially with the young people, I think probably even the more famous writers are not known by our students, and even more in the English department. For example, last week we were staging Arifin Cenur, but at the beginning of the semester, no one knows, or nobody knew who he was, like the students. Even when I asked them about W.S. Rendra and then Khairil Anwar, they have heard the name, but they don't know who they are, and they've never read their work. Instead of reading poetry, I think sometimes people prefer to watch TikTok. Poetry and TikTok in a way is similar, very short, but I think the younger generation are more excited to watch. That's okay, but I think looking back and also understanding Indonesian literature is rewarding for our students, and even more in the sometimes in the English departments, we have at least two undergrad English departments in this university, and we have two master programs in English. But they studied. This is a kind of ironic. They studied, writers from outside of Indonesia, but they don't understand Indonesian writers. So today we'll be discussing Swarsih Jayapuspito. You might not have heard of her name, and even more read the work. I have read one of the novel, but I think I have not finished that yet. But I've read the introduction from Edu Peron, for example. So one thing that is pretty interesting in my opinion is that this novel was written in Dutch by herself. So I think for the English department students, I think, and it was published by a Dutch publisher. So I think now for the English department students, then we can challenge them. Can they write novel and published by not Indonesian publisher, but by, publisher from other countries. So I think that is one of the achievement. And this is interesting because it was published in 1940. So it's 5 years before the independence. So I think reading the novel is a kind of interesting because it's a kind of in time of change. So if you can imagine, if you are a writer in 1940, then you might think, what kind of writing will what kind of work will I write? Because will I support the Indonesian movement, or will I support the Dutch government? So this kind of things, I think Hans later will talk about that one. So today we'll be discussing Manusia Bebas. And Hans is independent researcher. At the moment, he is doing research for her biography, so the biography of Suarse Joyopuspito. At the moment, probably Hans is the one who had the most information about Suarse, I would say. He has been meeting with someone from Leiden University with lots of materials, and also the materials that was left by Suarse. Some was still handwritten, some was in Indonesian language, some in Dutch. So I think there are more to dig. It's a rich information. And has been writing many forms of art for Dutch newspaper. He has written several books, especially about the relationship between the Netherlands and also Indonesia. So I think I will not be talking too much, otherwise I'll be taking too much time. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hans Visser.
Yes. So thank you very much, Auda. And thank you very much to be here, everybody. And I hope you will enjoy my humble road to the past and through the to the world of Holland and Indonesia, because in this story I will show that they were quite together. Well, who was Suarse Joyopuspito? It was, in fact, she is very interesting for many reasons. In the first place, maybe she is the reflection of our common history. Besides that, we find her view on nationalism. We can follow how she developed that. And we can also see how she was looking at the world of women at her time. And besides that, high above that, you see in the first place maybe that she had a wonderful view on what human being could be for each other. Well, let's start. Where does the story of Suarse start? We have to go back to a little village near Bogor called Cibatok. And is it an important village? Well, I did some research in newspapers, and then somewhere in the 19th century, I found a message that there was a man who climbed in a tree. He fell down and broke his neck. In fact, this is the only event that was, I think, important enough to put in a newspaper. But so in the year 1912, it was a humble village, and there she was born. Who were the parents? Oh, that's the other one. Yeah, that's obvious. Yeah, who were the parents? Well, we see there two portraits together of a Chinese couple, the Zhou Guangpao and Ye No, and they had there was a certain problem in the family, so the man decided to go into the Islam, and so the names changed in Abdul Rahman and Aisha Rohma. They had many daughters, and one of them was Ni Siti Hitaja. she married with Nur Said Joyo Posputro, an interesting man. He was an and yeah, his when you look to his history, that goes back to the Sultans of Chiribon. They also was fighting in the army of Diponegoro, and after that period ended, the family stayed in the neighborhood of Bogor. So when this, he was a remarkable man. He was very good in reading the Quran. He could explain everything. And he was, besides that, he was also a very good storyteller. He was, his performances with the Wayang were famous. And he also was said that he could have a look in the future. Besides that, he was not a really successful businessman. That's the other part of the story. But altogether, he was married already 2 times when he married this young 16 years old girl at the time. And she should be later on the mother of Suwarsi Joyo Pospito. And here we have a photo of 2 girls. At the left, you see Suwarni, that is her 2 years elder sister, and right is Suwarsi. This is a picture at the time that they went to the Kartini school in Bogor. And the Kartini school, maybe you know, it wasn't developed by, at the time you have in Holland, the idea of the ethische politiek. There were people who thought that we have to do something for the education, for the development of the Indonesian people, because they had a feeling they don't do enough. We had already the famous book with the letters by Kartini, and they were inspired by her writings. So they went to that school. There were several, and one of them was in Bogor. And it is very nicely. And yeah, you see here a group of little children. The picture is made around 1920. And in the middle, you see Juffrouw Aveling. She was the teacher. In fact, she was the head of the school. And yeah, who are these children? Well, at the right, completely at the right hand, you see a little girl. And according to my brother-in-law, it could be that she is the young Suwarsi. And of course, we are not sure about that, but it gives an impression of how that should have been. I don't know. Can you read the text under the? Is that possible for you to read it? Because I made an Indonesian translation. The key of these lines is that she was surprised by the way that because imagine a girl 6 years old. She is going to that school in Bogor, and she is there in school. Not only she doesn't go home in the evening. No, she is always there, day and night. So in fact, she is surprised that there comes a moment that this Juffrouw Aveling is going to be a kind of second mother for her. And moreover, she decides at the end that she couldn't imagine that she could come so close with Dutch people. She didn't have the experience before, and in fact, when you read her memories of her youth, which are not published, and I hope there comes a moment that it's possible for everybody to read them, because maybe not everything is interesting. There are wonderful parts in it. And she describes that in fact she was more affected to this Dutch teacher than to the Sundanese teachers, and so she learned there a lot of things: how to eat according to the European way, how to write, how to read, how to do knitting, a lot of other knitting works. And it is an she had a lot of fun at that school, and she also was one of the children that could already write quite well. As I told you, her father was a very good storyteller, so I have the feeling she has the talent from her father. Then we go a little bit further. So that is the Suarsi at school. Now we go to a different person. That is her husband. He comes from Tuban. He is a little bit older, and it is very interesting to know his background. He has also a certain noble story. Not from the highest level, but a certain noble story. And he lost his parents already quite soon. So it was his uncle who took care of him. And so when he went to because he had a noble background, he could go to the Hollandse Inlandse School. So it was a school for children with a noble background, because the normal Indonesian children, they didn't get the possibility to go to school. And so he had the possibility, he learned a lot. And when he had to go to the MULO, which was a level higher, he went to Surabaya, and there he got the possibility to in the course, as you say, in the course with a very interesting man for the Indonesian history, Cokro Aminoto. And that house is in fact, it is an everything happened. You might say a part of the Indonesian independence was grown there. You see, I have some pictures here. So left under is Sugondo Joyo Pospito. So he was the later husband. Cokro Aminoto is left above, and then right is Haji Agus Salim. He is the later. He will be the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but that is much more later. And right, you see a young boy, and we later on we will know him as Sukarno. And Agus Salim was one of the visitors of the house, but Sukarno lived there. So imagine this Sugondo lived together with Sukarno. And it must be clear that they had a lot of discussions there. Sukarno was already a little bit older. He was at a higher school than Sugondo, and he brought a lot of ideas, and they had a lot of discussions there. So he was, by the way, not the only one. There were more people in Kos, and people like Musso, and people who had a very important role in the Tan Malaka, in the Indonesian history. When he gets a little bit older, he will see. The next one. Thank you. The next picture. Here we see a picture of Sugondo. He is at the background, and on the foreground we see the two women. It's his sister Sukemi and the sister of Kartini, and he went with them. Oh yeah, the Sukemi. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sukemi. That is on that's the right, and this is the sister of elder sister of Kartini. And why is this picture? Did they make this picture? This is when they went to Delhi for a women's congress in 1928. A women's congress, but I think that he was there also as a kind of chaperone. He had to take care of them, because you can't let women travel alone. At that time, I think it's a little bit different nowadays. And 1928 is also the year that Sugondo was the chairman of the what we later on the Congress that created the Sumpah Pemuda. You know, it was the idea of how the state of the national state of Indonesia should be. I don't know how important the newspapers saw this event, but this is what I could find in the newspapers. That means the Dutch newspapers of that time. It's wonderful that you can find a lot of things. And now in internet, it's if you want to know something Indonesian history, all the newspapers from the past, you can find it on internet on a wonderful website. And it's in Dutch, but with a little bit of help, you can come very far. His goal was being the chairman of that Congress of the young organizations, and there happened something big interesting too. It was the first time that the what now is the national anthem was performed. There is some beautiful stories about it, how that happened. It was Rudolf Wagi Supratman who made the music, and he wanted to play it there, and they should sing it, but it was not allowed. In fact, so they asked Sugondo asked the Dutch man of the government, is it okay that we do that? And he said, well, I should say ask the police. And after all, it was allowed to do that. That means that only could play it on the violin, but it was not allowed to sing the lyrics, the words, and the meaning of the song. We go now to the next. We see there the meeting of that Congress, the second Youth Congress, and I put here also a picture of the Taman Siswa school here in Jogja with Hajar de Mentoro, and it is there where Sugondo got his building. He developed as a teacher. As I say, in fact, he wanted to study law, but later on he wanted to get involved with teaching with the school, because that was one of the most important things. There was no school, as I told you, for Indonesian children, so they decided to build their own system. And de Mentoro, as you saw, was the man who invited that. There is a very small museum next to the school here in Jogja, Jalan Taman Siswa, a very interesting name in this case. And I've been there 2 weeks ago, and I can tell you it's very interesting to go there, because you have a wonderful, authentic view. It is a step into the past. You see how he lived there, his belongings, and also his Dutch act. We say that he is allowed to be a teacher. No, let's go next. Oh yeah, here. Oh, we go too far. We go back to Suharto at the time. After her time at school, she had the possibility to go to Surabaya. And in Surabaya, she goes to the school where she gets the education to be a teacher. There you see a piece from an article, small article from the newspaper at the time, and you see that also Mrs. Joyo Pospito is very successful. She is going to the second class after the first class, so it is nice that they even publish that. She was one of the best students in her class, as I may believe her personal story. And moreover, she had a wonderful teacher for Dutch language. And the teacher, he told her that he was reading with the children, with the students, the book Max Havelaar by Multatuli. Multatuli, maybe I have to introduce him. You see his picture left. He was, if you see his personal life, you might say he is a little bit difficult, maybe a little bit crazy, but maybe you have to be crazy to be a brilliant genius man. He was an assistant resident for the Dutch government in Lebak, and there he saw a lot of situations that he didn't like. That should be changed. We should do something better for the people here, and so he complained at the governor-general in Bogor, but didn't get any response. So he was fired, and he went back to Holland, and there he wrote a novel in which he described the situation in Lebak. And that book, it's a wonderful written novel, became very famous, and it had also a lot of influence in the first place in the Dutch politics, because something in the parliament was changing. They get an eye for the needs of the Indonesian people, and besides that, it was a very good novel, and the teacher was talking about that book with the students at that school. There she was fascinated by the story, and she took it over. At the time, she had already a lot of influence by her sister, Suarni, who was involved in the women's movement. So there, if you read her memories, then you find how she developed her feeling for we have to do something for the people, especially for the Indonesian women, and the national idea. So she was quite young, but that just started. We talk about 1930. And then there comes a moment that she gets her diploma. She can start to work, and she is doing that at a government school. She gets a wonderful salary, 90. By the way, she was in the class at that school with another Indonesian student. The other were all Dutch, and but she got a job as a teacher, and she got a salary of 90 guilders in a month. But then she met her husband, and they married, and they involved the movement of what they call the wild schools. They had the idea that we make our own schools, we organize our own education for the Indonesian people, as long as the Dutch government doesn't do that. Well, it was a wonderful proof of idealism. Not only that she's doing that, but I told you 90 guilders in a month, and she get back to a salary of 15 guilders a month, which is almost nothing if you compare that. And it was even that bad that there were moments that they had to live from the gifts from the parents. It was a very difficult time. It was a real struggle. They were, you might say, they are poor, but they had an idea. They had something. We have to do a lot of work for our own people. The next picture is Bandung, 1935. By the way, the former picture was one on such a wild school, the Taman Siswa. This is a picture in 1935 in Bandung, and the little girl you see there is turned out to be my mother-in-law. And it was the time that they also developed in writing. They have a feeling that children also have to be books. People have to be books. They have to read, and that is also the time that she starts to write a novel, Mariana. As I told you, she comes from Cibatok near Bogor, and that is the Sundanese world. So her native tongue is Sundanese. So she wrote this novel in the Sundanese language. It's a story about a woman in a wedding with a lot of troubles, with fooling around with a man with more than one wife. So it's then you see she has already all kinds of feelings. What is this? Is this right? Is this normal? Can I accept that? And then there comes a man in her life. It's it's Eddie du Perron. Eddie du Perron is a Dutch. Was a Dutch boy. He was born in West Java, in Batavia, at the time, and when he was a grown-up man, he went to Holland to for his education and so on. But in the 30s, he came back to the Indies, and he was writing in several newspapers. He was a man with very outspoken ideas, especially very critical on the government. And in fact, he had, you can call him a kind of anti-colonial writer. That brought him a lot of troubles with a lot of discussions with other writers from newspapers. But one of the papers he was writing for, it's a small magazine, Kritiek en Opbouw. You can say it's critic and building. So they don't want to criticize only, but they also wanted to contribute. So this man, he had what is quite strange at the time. He had some Indonesian friends. Among them, for instance, Suyitno Mangunkusumo and the family Pringgodikdo. Abdurrahman Pringgodikdo was married to the sister of Suwarsi. And so Suwarsi and her husband, they heard a lot about Perron, but they never met him. That changed on one day. She described that first meeting in several stories, and then you see that there is they live in Bandung in a small street in a gang, as you say. And there one day, Segundo said there was a man on the door. They were shocked because they thought it is somebody of the political intelligence. But he came in, and with him came his wife, which is for the political intelligence, of course, not so very normal. And he introduced himself as Eddie du Perron. So the first shock was over, but the next shock was that they met a man who was, in their eyes, quite famous. And but he was very easy, and they had a wonderful talk. And it shouldn't be the first one. He even told me, "I'm very sorry that I didn't come here sooner before." And in fact, this man is the key to real writership. He when he came, he learned that a novel, Mariana, was rejected by the publisher, reasons can be, one of the reasons can be that the book was maybe too shocking for the Sundanese people. It was too difficult, too much about marriage marriage that failed. So you can see there is a friendship. In the next picture we see. I'm very sorry. There's no picture of Susi and Sugondo with Du Perron, but there were some pictures. So at the left you see Du Perron with the family of Pringo Dikdo and is the sister of Suwarsi. And the picture right, that is also very funny. You see there. This is Suyitno Mangukusomo. And this is Beb Du Perron. And this is Eddie Du Perron. And that is the wife of Mangukusomo. And this is Tati Mangukusomo. And here we come quite close to this time, because she lives, she's still alive. She lives in Rotterdam. And if you like a good nasi goreng and you make an appointment with her, then she will help you. She's a very, very nice woman. And she lived later on in Jogja. She was married with a Dutch surgeon, and she worked as a children's doctor in the Bethesda hospital. But they were really close friends with each other. And it shows that Du Perron was not far away from the Indonesian people. Suwarsi told that her novel was rejected, and then she started to talk with Du Perron, and he said, "Why don't you write another novel, another book?" But the problem was that Suwarsi wanted to write about heroes, about leaders, about people who could be an example. But Du Perron said no, that is not such a good idea. So he advised her first to read novels by, for instance, the great Russian writers like Dostoevsky. He told her to learn something about psychology. And he said, forget about sentimental feelings. Don't write about red roses, blue mountains, but try to write about normal people, about normal circumstances that we can recognize. Because that is also his own style, which was at that moment in Holland quite new. They were changing the style of literature. So he advised her, why don't you write about your own life? And then she started to write, and there is a novel that I found just by accident. If you do the research, you have to be lucky. So I found this wonderful novel in which she describes that she was starting right, that she had a lot of fun doing that, and she did it especially in the nights when her husband was not there, and after all the book was ready. And there came a moment that when I visited my sister-in-law, she said, "I have something. Can you have a look at it?" And then I found the manuscript. You see it here. This is the front page of Buiten het Geheel, the typed manuscript. And this is the first page, with here a note by Du Perron. He did also some corrections, but this is also signed by him, ADP. And here he says something, I gave the chapters a name, but maybe you have better ideas. And anyway, he in the 1939, he went back to Holland. And in his luggage was this manuscript. Back in Holland, it was short before the Second World War started there. And on the 10th of May 1945, Holland was occupied by the German army. Duperron was quite shocked by that. In a way, he had already a problem with his heart. But on 14th of May, one day before the Dutch army had to surrender, he got a heart attack and he died. And what you see here is a message about his death from the newspaper. And this is the front page of Kritiek en Opbouw. The connection with Holland and Indonesia was completely broken when the war broke out. There was no contact anymore. So in Holland, they didn't know what was going on here, and here they didn't know what was going on in Holland. So later, much more later, they found out that Duperron died. And that brought a number of in memoriam stories about him, written by Suyitno Mangkukuomo, by Suwarsi, by Sugondo, by some other editors of this magazine. Rob Nieuwenhuis, I call his name, because we find him back later in his story. And they all were, of course, very shocked. But the stories of Suwarsi and Sugondo, you find that they were real friends with him. They missed him a lot. He was a very good support. Also, interesting is that I found another unpublished novel. I call it Trishna because it doesn't have a name yet. And there is a letter that she wrote to a close friend, Beb Fuik. Name sounds very Dutch, maybe, but she was an Indo-European, and when the revolution started, she took the Indonesian identity. She wrote a letter to her, and she said, I'm working now on a novel about my experiences before the war, during the war, and in the revolution. She never finished the letter. Why? I don't know, but there is an interview with a Swedish newspaper, 1953, and there she says, sorry, I can't finish the story because it is too emotional. It is too heavy for me. Well, what I have here 2 pages. The first story is a description, the first page of where she travels by train somewhere in December 45. And she describes the feeling of being in a time of revolution, a time of war. Everything, she says, it's very beautiful. Everything is very peaceful offside, but at the meantime, we are in danger. It's a time of war. And the second page is, she calls it a letter that I never sent to my friend B. So I think it must be Beb. And in this letter is a kind of declaration about how she is looking. Imagine she is writing this during the revolution time. She is talking about how it should be. As you know, there is a war between the Dutch and the army and the Indonesian fighters for the independence. But she believes that it could be different. That you can build an Indonesian nation, and if her dream is that in fact the Dutch government should support that and help them with building the new nation. But after all, we know that didn't happen as you wanted. She also says something about writing in Dutch. The reason is that she said, I like to write in Indonesian, but it is too difficult for me. It is for me. It's a new language. I can't say what I want to say in the Indonesian language. And as Auda told already, many people like to write in English, but it is of course not your native language. But in her case, she learned to work with the Dutch language already when she was 6 years old, and she was very good in it. So after all, you can say that she was using several languages. Her native language, Sundanese. The next one was Dutch. Then in school she learned to speak German and French. Then later on she got used to write Indonesian. And besides that, she will be used also with the Japanese language. And then the next picture is also quite something. In 19 December 1948, you see that it's the last big confrontation with the Dutch army. The troops they captured Yogyakarta, and they arrest Sukarno, Hatta. You see also Shahrir and many others. They Sukarno, Hatta, Shahrir, and this is Sugando Joyo Hospital. And there is a nice story, because if you read about these situations, it's all about what happened with the men, and all the stories are mostly written by men. War is mostly a man's world, you might say. But what she did is writing a story. How does a woman experience this moment? The story is written in Dutch, but maybe it should be translated ever in Indonesian, because I think it's a nice story. In 1953, she got the invitation to come to Europe. She is coming to Holland. She's going to Ireland, and I found some starts of new stories. She wanted to write about her visit to Ireland, but that never happens. But in any way, you see here that she's visiting Sweden, and also in Denmark, where she visited the statue of Hans Christian Andersen, a famous fairy tale writer, who was her great example. By the time she started also to write a lot of fairy tales. Here we see it. She has a lot of fun here. This is a Swedish newspaper. And here we see she is visiting Ireland, and she is not the only one, because here we see Agu Salim, and by the way, it's his family, Sultan Shahrir. Maybe one of the more profane elements in the story is that Shahrir was almost married to his sister. To her sister Suwarni, but he got the possibility to go for his study to Holland, and they broke. About broken loves. She was, as I told you, she's writing quite often about problems with love and marriage, and she married Sugondo because they thought that they fit together. It was not a choice of the parents. In her memories, she writes a story that she meets a Japanese boy in Surabaya, and it seems that they will go on together. But then there comes a moment that the boy says, "I'm sorry, my father died, and I promised him when he died that I should marry my niece. So goodbye." and the love story was over. And that is, I think, that is a very important moment for her, because that made a decision to write about more about these situations, to reflect on that, and to give an example to the people. And then after in the 50s, she's writing several short stories. They're published in magazine Confrontatie. And here you see also again stories about women, about men who are fooling around. And even there is a story about a woman who commits suicide. And it is maybe typical Suarsi, because there are more examples like that. The story about of the woman who commits suicide comes from a woman who appears in her dream. It's a nice story, and also maybe interested to look at later on. The question is, how autobiographical are the novels and the short stories that she wrote? Well, it is funny, when one of the she also wrote another novel. It's called Arlina, and then you see that she makes sometimes a mistake. Instead of Arlina, she writes Aku, and she makes the correction Aku. Sorry, that must be Arlina. So she's always quite close to herself. And then in the 70s, times are changing. Maybe you know that after 1957, the connection between Indonesia and Holland was completely broken. There was no contact anymore. But after 65, that step by step, it came back. And with that time, also old friends came back to Indonesia. So one day she met also the writer Rob Nieuwenhuis, that he was also writing for Kritiek en Opbouw. By the way, if you ever want to know something about the Indonesian literature, he wrote a kind of Bible. Every writer, everybody who wrote anything about this period, a novel or whatever it is, he described it. And here we see this Suarsi and Sugondo when they are on a certain age, already all around 60. Then there is a visitor. In 1970, it's you see him left on the picture. I tell you who are all those people. Here we see Sugondo. This is yes, that's Devi. You know her. Here we see that is Tuwit. She's sitting there. That is the mother. Here is, it is the late Dedek. And this is Suarsi. And here we see Gerard ter Morshuizen. Gerard ter Morshuizen was a Dutch lecturer at the UI in Jakarta. And he was building there the Dutch department. And he went to Jogja, and there he visited Suarsi. He knew about the novel Buiten het Gareel, and it was his idea that there should be an Indonesian translation of the book, because it was only published in Dutch and not in Indonesian, so the Indonesian people couldn't read it. He started a kind of campaign. The Dutch government, after all, gave the money to translate this novel Buiten het Gareel into Manusia Bepas. There was an article already by H.B. Yassin, an Indonesian writer. He said it should be called Manusia Merdeka. But in one of her letters, she said that's wrong, because it is not Merdeka. It's about people who are free, who watch the world with an open mind, who people without traditions, without all kinds of traditions. In fact, about the cultural situations that you may not do, you may not do this, you may not do that. Be free and make contact with people with an open mind, with open eyes, with open ears. Listen to them, and then you can come to a different world. And that is what you see in the novel Manusia Bebas. It's the free man, and that is what I mentioned also in when we talk about humanity. In the first place, we have to be human beings and go on with each other. It's easy to read, I hope. And when the Manusia Bebas is published, she gets a letter from, and there she is again, Nonja Aveling. She is still. She heard that her book was translated. She wrote a letter, and somebody in the family, I don't know who, is collecting stamps. That's why you see there is a gap in the letter. But what we can read is that she says, when you were still a child, I was really fond of you, and it was wonderful to have you in my class. And then the letter goes on with a nice small talk, in fact. But it is a nice example of how she was already seen as a child as something remarkable. And then she wrote for the magazine Tirade, a literary magazine in Holland, a very beautiful story. The coming home of a former fighter. It's a story about the funeral of Sultan Shahryar. As I told you, she knew him quite well. She describes in memories how he was the main person in her group of friends. He was. They made the stage plays to make some money for founding a new school. They had a lot, he was somebody, they had a lot of fun with him, but also a very remarkable man. And but if you read this story, this quote is about it shows how well they know each other. But in fact, the story is I said it's the funeral of Shahryar, but it is also the funeral, I might say, of her ideals. Because all she wanted, all she had seen, dreams, it was not there. It was a different world. And if you read her letters and you see the situation, it is not the way of life that she dreamed of. She lived still in Jogja, but she had a small pension. They were still not rich, but. In fact, it's a funeral of her ideals. And then I come to a last quote. I found a piece of paper. It's a part of story, but this page number 8, but page number 127, it is disappeared. Maybe it will show up ever. But she is describing a situation in 1949 in Jogja. They lived in the Jalan Melayu. We visited the place a few weeks ago. It's the house doesn't exist. It is now a restaurant. But if you read the story, she describes how there was an action of the Dutch army. The bullets were flying through the house. They were very, very afraid. And I said, my God, how is this possible? Is this the real? Are this the real Dutch people who do this? And then I realized happily we knew also people like Duperon because we shouldn't do that. He had another idea, and then we come to the last quote and said, "But the time flies, the times changes, and now we live in a time. Yeah, you can read it that our generation will pass away here in Indonesia, but also in Holland." And there is a new generation of people who will meet each other, and with an open mind, as Manusha Bebas, and will go on together for a new future, and maybe with the ideals that she couldn't realize, but she was faced in her dreams. Well, I think this is what not all that I had to tell you, but is a brief view on the life of Suwasi Joyopaspito and her husband Sugondo. I thank you very much.
Thank you. So big applause for Hans. Thank you very much, Hans. So I think it's more or less one word, but it's very fascinating. I think the two groups of people that we have here are the people from language department, and also I see some people from, or lecturers, and also students from history department. So I think your presentation has shown us the richness of literary work, that a novel is never only a story, but it's a very, very rich work you have shown. So it's like the connection from the literary department, language department, but also history department, because the connection between the story and the writer and what is happening around her or him is really really close. So I think that is the for the language student, I think your talk, your discussion, your information is about how a novel was born. This is never that simple. If I learned that, so you started from Bogor in 2012. Was that 12 when the writer was born? And then you told the story how up to 1940s and then 1945. So it's about how a novel was written, and also why, probably, or what for a novel was written, and also the history of the writer. I think that is the serious side from this talk. But also maybe for the younger students, I think there's a lighter story that you told us about the cost. So Sukarno was there, Sukondo Puspito was there, Agus Salim was there, and Chokro Aminoto was there. So they are the cool people in our history. So I think the message for the students is, be careful when you're choosing your friends in course, because they might be, if you imagine them, they're very young, they're just cool kids living in a course here in Kang Bromo or whatever. And they are like, okay, well, let's make a country, something like that. I think the students now is a bit different. Maybe let's go to Warung Kucing, right? So, but this, I think these kids, so I think that's the lighter side of your presentation. But of course, now I think we will have questions, probably from the audience here, and also from Zoom. If you have questions, I think you can write on the Zoom here, and also you can ask directly. Okay, from the audience here, we have one. Okay, from Zoom, you can raise your hand, or you can type directly to the chat. box if you have questions. While we're waiting for our friends from Zoom, I think we have one from here. So please.
Actually, I'm a bit lost with the presentation, sorry, because the title says Suwarsi Joyopuspito Alive with an Ideal. So I'm just wondering which part is an ideal? Like, you haven't really explained what is the ideal one. Like, what is the life with an ideal according to Suwarsi Joyopuspito? Bits and pieces is there, but I'm trying to figure out like what is it actually. Thank you.
The ideal was building a nation, doing something for the women, doing something for the education, and that is something that is coming above, which is the idea of the humanism. Let's build the world together.
Because the ideal that Suwarsi had was quite important during that time, but somehow she was swallowed by other writers, especially even like the women. So I'm just wondering why Suwarsi was not very prominent. I don't know, like either back then or even like right now. And I don't like how many students knew her name before then, right? So yeah, so this is my second question based on that, because it's like the ideal life, it was very revolutionary during that time, even like for now, with all the, what do you call it, influencers, buzzers and whatever, and our nation is still not ideal. But then why she was not prominent?
Why she was not prominent? I think it has to do with the language. There was an interview with a Dutch writer, and she tells her, I still write in Dutch before I write in Indonesian, because it is too difficult for me to express myself in the Indonesian language. The for instance, translation of Manusia Bebas, there was a lot of work. She was very glad to do it, because she wanted to give this story to the next generations. But she had a lot of trouble with it. It is, she said, I need more words, if you, I'm not a specialist in the Indonesian language, but if you read also letters by people who are involved with the project, for instance, Theo, Professor Theo in Leiden, they see that she is struggling with the Indonesian language, and in fact that language is at that moment quite new. For the people, but also for her. But she is. There are other writers at that moment who are more able to express themselves in this let me say more or less new language.
Okay, so because this is the form of discussion, I think the second question is very interesting, especially for the young people. And also we have here Pak Yosef Yopitaum and also Pak Rio. Pak Rio is from history department. So maybe why is Sahrir more popular than Sukondo, and then why is Sukondo more popular than his wife? You know, so maybe Pak Rio has the answer. Hans is answering from the Netherlands point of view, but also maybe Pak Yapi is expert in the history of literature. Why women literature are less popular than male writers, probably. But also I think in general, and Busri is going to contribute to the discussion. I also put here in the chat box, you can click that. There are Spotify. I think that is a new platform for the new generation. In Spotify, actually, Salihara has broadcast about Swarse. So I think it's a very, very nice one. It's in Indonesian, and it's about 40 minutes. You can listen to the discussion. It's on not only about Swarse but also about other women writers in Salihara, and then also Swarse I think got more popularity after Gunawan Muhammad, because Gunawan Muhammad is a prominent writer, prominent journalist in Indonesia. He wrote about Swarse in Tempo in 2013. So I have the link there also as an additional information. And then also in the Netherlands itself, I think Swarse is still popular, because last month the Dutch television, is that national television or private television? Yeah. So broadcast the relation again between not only Swarse but also some other cultural information on that. But I think first Bu Sri, and then probably Pak Yapi and Pak Rio, you want to add something. Thank you.
Terima kasih Pak Uda. I would like just to add some information. When I taught Bahasa Indonesia in Sastra Inggris, I try to what you call it, collect more references, and then I found a book. It's a very formal one concerning the heritage of Indonesia. So they have many different series, and one of them is about Sastra Indonesia, and her name was mentioned there as what we call it, as an early writer. So I guess she is indeed acknowledged, as a pioneer. Not just woman writer, but as a writer, because in the timeline, etc., we have quite a lot of information concerning her works, especially the one in Bahasa Sunda, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Terima kasih. Which is a little addition that I know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bu Sri. So so she was in the collection, and not only as a woman writer but as a prominent writer and of course this is for all of us, I think, how we introduce, because how we introduce the writers from the past. Pak Yapi, Pak Rio, do you want to add something? And then we have a question or comments on the chat. Not yet. Okay, I'll read the question. I think there's a question from the audience in Zoom. My name is Ignatius Aryono Putranto. I think he's a lecturer in the economics department. Although I'm not English literature or history department, but I'm very interested to the topic. My question to Mr. Hans Visser: if we connect the concept of manusia bebas with the information and technology era now, how can we conceptualize manusia bebas in this era? Thank you very much. So thank you, Pak Aryono. So Hans, what do you think? How will we connect the story, the novel with today's life, basically?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Literature is very interesting because it's about a story about people. And if it's a good story, then you can recognize something. You can recognize yourself. You can recognize the world. And you can learn something. It is all already meeting the persons in a story. It can give you the feeling that you're not the only one in that situation. So it's literature is always good, but if you see look at this time, I think that what you see is, and I didn't say too much about it, but the story is about two people with an ideal. The ideal was building a nation, but they had to struggle for it. There was a lot of a lot of trouble, political situations, economic situations. It was really a hard time. At least they gave up, and they had to follow. And she went to work for a government school. So he got a normal salary, and he was glad that he got a job as a kind of a civil servant. So, but going back to the question, what I can say is that what you see here, I think Duperron told her, don't talk about heroes, don't write about leaders, about people, but keep the story by yourself. That is far more interesting, and that's what she did here. So what you recognize is you can get some spirit from people who are working for an ideal, for a dream. In this case, a new world with possibilities, chances for everybody, not only for a small group of people, but as what she says, is just a few hundred schools for millions of people. Is that enough? That is the idea, that can you learn from this book, that it is always good to start something new, although it seems to be impossible, but do something for the society.
Okay, thank you very much. And so I think if thank you for the explanation, but I think if we ask Suarsi herself, probably the quote that you put here is very relevant to Vidya's question, and also Aryono's question about the connection between her work and also the world now. Maybe it's not really a direct connection, but I think this is a beautiful quote that you have, and it's also happening with us, because Pak Aryono was talking about the technology, also how do we interpret the work of Suarsi in today's life. So if you look at the maybe it's a bit too small, the quote here, manusia bebas berarti manusia yang manusiawi, bebas dari prasangka. So I think we use the technology most of the time. It's more for the prasangka. It's not for the kebebasan. Bebas dari rasa takut, free from fear. Bebas dari bentuk-bentuk tradisi yang mengikat. So I think she's a kind of a brave woman. If you relate to the Disney movie, I think the movie Brave, maybe she was like that, free from tradition and fear, dalam upaya saya untuk menjadi bebas secara spiritual, so spiritually free. But she admit that she sometimes had failures, sering mengalami kegagalan, sering menghadapi pertentangan dari masyarakat sendiri. So I think that's also happening with us. And if we look at our history, throughout history, 1945, and then we have 1965, 1997, it's always in our society that we have. I think not just Indonesian society, but also society in general. Saya menyadari bahwa terlepas dari kegagalan dan kebangkitan tersebut, manusia harus terlebih dahulu bebas secara batin sebelum berpikir untuk membangun masa depan. I think this is very, very, very strong quote. Manusia harus terlebih dahulu bebas secara batin sebelum berpikir untuk membangun masa depan yang lebih baik bagi bangsanya. So I think in a way it shows the spirit of those years and those people, like Sahrir, Sukarno, and so on. And I think we talk about politics and history. Now we are entering, the year of tahun politik. So I think this is a very, very important today of these people, or are we actually being free before we think about our nation, before we make the vote next year, then I'll be free from those. So I think that's in a way this quote is answering Pak Aryono's question in the Zoom. So hopefully Hans, and also this quote answers that question, Pak Aryono. Thank you. Yeah, we have another one. Yes, Pulian. I'm Lian Kau, the founder of Dalang Publishing. It is fair to say that Swarseh was born a century too early. So she was born too early. What do you think, Hans?
Yeah, that is something. Yeah, too early. She's born in 1912, and you can't change that. But I think that with her ideas, it is. Yeah, it was. If she should be born now, then she would be born in a complete different world. And I see, if you compare her world with this one, apart from the revolution of 45, there is already an enormous social revolution. Even already in the 30s, you see in the 20s of the last century, you see already so much changing. And she grew with that, and she was. I think she's not a mental leader or something like that, but she's more an observer. And I feel that if you read her works, you are introduced to the world of yesterday, but it is what you see is a world in transition. And how do they do with that? And that is also why I say that's why it's a very sad story, the funeral of Shahrir, because the way she's looking at what is happening there. He was I say that Duperon said, don't write about your heroes or your leaders, but after all, she did. And he was one of her heroes, and she believed in what he was doing. And then she, you know what happened with him. He was arrested and sent in exile, and he died in Switzerland. And after all, he could come back when he was dead. But you see that she is burying the man who was an example for higher ideals, for a new world, with chances for everybody. Don't forget, they were both members of the PSE.
Okay,
so Social Democrats. That is what it is.
Yeah. So thank you very much. So I think that's the comment from Ibu Lian. So I think that also shows that her work is actually a kind of timeless, that's still applicable today. The one that the quote that you have shown is, it's never out of date, Okay. Thank you. Maybe from the audience here, or maybe from Zoom. And now waiting for the questions from the Zoom and also from here. I think you have shown also, because again, as I mentioned, most of the audience here are from the language department and also from the history department. But then you were talking about both worlds, the literary work, but also the historical perspective. So maybe some of the students from the language department will, or if I am a student from the language department, I will ask a question like, when you are reading a novel, which one is first? Do you read that for pleasure, or do you read that for like historical information? So, and what is your advice to the students who are reading, like literary works?
You mean reading this novel? Or
this novel, and also any novel, because sometimes I think they were forced by their lecturers here to read something and they don't like it. When I was a student, I don't like reading, so I only read the first few pages at the front, and then few pages in the middle, and then few pages at the end, and I feel that I know the novel, So and when the lecturer is asking me, then I can start talking nonsense about the novel. But I think that is not the right way of reading. So what is your advice, novel in general, but also this particular novel? How should we read this particular novel, but also novels in general?
Well, reading a novel in general. When I read a novel, a novel is I think it's written in the first place to entertain people, and that is the key of what we are doing for centuries already. I think as long as people can talk, they tell each other stories. And what is the reasoning of telling a story? For instance, the old Greek, they wrote stage plays, they wrote stories to put a topic somewhere, and that people could discuss about it. Stories can be just an example for a situation, but you can also just read it for fun. And then there is nothing wrong with that. But you can also enjoy the language, the way somebody is using the language. And very long ago, we were talking about Multatuli as one of the writers who inspired many nationalists here. Not only Suarsi, but also many others. All the important nationalist leaders, they have read it now. So when I very long ago started that novel just by accident, maybe I had the feeling, well, maybe it's interesting to have a look. I couldn't stop reading because it was so fascinating. The way he was doing, you were thrown from every moment. He put you on another leg to stand on.
Okay, so about this novel, is this novel entertaining? I don't speak Dutch. The Dutch one, do you think is it entertaining? Because you say for enjoyment and entertainment.
Which novel do you mean?
The Manusia Bebas, the Dutch version.
The Dutch version. Yeah, I must admit that when I read it for the first time, it was quite difficult to get into a world. But if you know this world a little bit better, then you start recognizing. So I read it more than once, and every time you read it, you come closer to the people, and you see more, you recognize more, because it's a very she is very close to what she is observing.
Okay, because now I think the novel is also being translated into English.
And it is also very interesting, that aspect I didn't mention yet, but it is also very interesting to read about what happens with a marriage under pressure. What does it do with people in a difficult situation? She has to accept everything that Sugando is doing. In this case, it is Suwarni, Sulastri, and Sudarmo. But then he has an idea to start a magazine. Then he has to start a library, and she has to follow him step by step. And sometimes you think by yourself, why is she doing that? Can you take it a little bit easier, because you also have to raise children?
Okay, so the novel itself is interesting, but probably you need serious reading, right?
Yeah, don't. But at the other hand, don't read it as a history book.
As a mere enjoyment, but also not as a history book. Okay, I think we have another question. Here is from Miss Yulianeta. So thank you, Mr. Hans Visser. My name is Neta. My question is, how do the works and thoughts of Suarsi Joyopuspito influence social life and cultural changes especially regarding with the role of women, both in her time and in the present day? Thank you.
Well, I think that yeah, of course, the influence of her oeuvre, of the books that she wrote, can't be so big, because the books, stories which are published, in fact, it's just a part of what she wrote. But you might say that, as I said, that what she made in more or less the mistake that she, at the end, she starts also writing again with a lot of admiring for heroes, and that is that. In fact, she's but I think she doesn't have too much influence, of course, because it is not everything is published. So and not everything is available. And don't overestimate the quality. It's good stories and entertaining, and you can learn something from it. But I don't think that she will change the world with her literature. It is, I might say, it can be encouraging, and of course she puts her finger on the what we say, op de zere plek, on the wound. Where it's and that can be that people can recognize that, and they can feel some feeling of thanks God, I'm not the only one who is suffering this problem. I'm not the only one with a husband who is fooling around. For instance, to give a very confronted example.
Yeah. So hopefully Bu Neta or Mbak Neta, that was the answer from Hans. But also, if you want to know more from Indonesian perspective, I think the article written by Gunawan Muhammad is a kind of a new perspective among us Indonesian, because we never heard of her, and her influence, and also the Spotify broadcast. I think that's another perspective, especially the speaker in that Spotify broadcast was talking about the other writers also. So how they contribute to Indonesian literature, but also to society in general. Of course, also probably like at the personal level, of course, when you read something, then you get inspired, and as you mentioned, it's not a history book, it's not a cookbook, so it's more to inspire people.
But by the way, it's a very good article by Gunawan Muhammad. I know it, and I was. But it is maybe interesting to say something about the Dutch way they look at it at the moment. It is we have in Holland there is a streaming that is in which we try to reflect on a different way on the past. And that the interesting of Sarsi is that she is an example of somebody from two cultures, from two worlds, and both worlds together in her life. Of course, there is in 45 there is a big confrontation. But she still keeps believing in it, and one of the ideals is also that they should build a new country together. But that didn't happen. If there's an interview made in 1971, I think, in which both her husband and she says, in fact, we are very disappointed in what is the result of this nation at the moment, because in fact she said exactly, since Multatuli nothing's changed.
Yeah. Okay.
And that is why I said, if you read the story about the funeral of Shahrir,
Shahrir,
then
yeah.
you can say it's the funeral of her ideals.
Okay. Thank you. And there's a question from Pulian. So the Dutch version is Puiten. How do you pronounce it? Puiten het Haril.
Buiten het gareel.
Yeah, that's the correct pronunciation.
Outside the lines.
Yeah, outside the lines. So, and then translated into Indonesian, manusia bebas. Some people suggested that it should be manusia merdeka, but it's more bebas rather than merdeka.
There is a young Dutch woman and researcher too. She's writing about the colonial literature, and she started to write about this novel. For her, this is a wonderful example of the new Indonesian literature, the start of a new period.
Okay, and then Pulians also asked whether that is available on Amazon. I'm not sure. Maybe not. So probably not. But we have the some Indonesian version. Maybe if you are interested in the Indonesian version when you are here, Pulian, I think I can save one for you. Or maybe later if the English version is published. But at the moment, I think it's Indonesian version and Dutch version.
The Dutch version is free available on internet.
Oh, the Dutch version is free on the internet. Maybe I will give you the link, Pulian, because I'm not sure. I think you are speaking Dutch. I suspect, but I'm not sure. Okay, thank you. Anyone? Yes, okay.
Thank you, Pak Hans. And this is such a happy moment for me because last year I taught Indonesian literature. And in one of my PPT slides that I delivered to my students, I included Sarsi as one of the women writers whose work rejected by the Balai Pustaka publisher. Basically, her work is not the only one, because we still have Armin Pane and then Semaon and Student Hijau by Mas Marco Dikromo and so on. To me, this is quite political, and everything is quite political, I guess. In relation to the publication of a certain work. So what do you think about this? Thank you.
Rejection.
The rejection. Yes, as far as there is in the first place, there is always a misunderstanding that buiten het gareel, Manusia Bebas was the translation of her first novel, which isn't. It is of course a new story, but the reason why it is rejected is quite clear. That it is not really educating for the Sudanese people. But if you want more, I can give you some more information about that. There are several ideas about that, but I think this is the main reason. It was, you can say it was not well written, but there is never gave a real reason. But you can see that if you know if you watch at the way of life in that time, and you see the story, then it is not really educating. It is, as I told you, it is about fooling around, about having more than one wife, and that is not really. I think that they felt it was not really educating for the people. Otherwise, it is. I read a novel, not in Sundanese, but I was very lucky that somebody translated, who was studying Sundanese, he translated this story into Dutch, and well, it's a nice story. There's nothing wrong with it. But from our point of view, oh, interesting. This is you can see how at that time somebody is struggling with a husband who is doing things that she doesn't like, and it is it's an interesting observation. It's also we say in Holland iets van je afschrijven. She wants to write something to you know how it works. You write about something and then it's ready. You left the problem. I think that maybe it's also a little bit like that, but it is very difficult for me to look into her life. But I have the feeling there happened a lot, which is inspired. There is a lot that you might be inspired by the reality. I have the feeling, but you're never sure. But it's like Gerrit Mosha always told me, that is the Dutch, the man who took the initiative for the translation. He always said, Suwassi always writes autobiographical. It's always about herself. You see different names, buiten het gareel, for instance. The two main persons are she and her husband, but there's also people you see. Sukarno, no, only Sukarno is the real has a real part in the story, but others are they. Everybody can be the Pringo Dictos, Mangu Gosomo. They are all existing, but they are in the book with a different name.
Okay, so actually, in short, is the rejection political, or is it purely literary reason, or is it both? In short,
I don't have the feeling it is political.
You don't have the feeling, so it's mainly.
If social life is political, then yes, but
okay,
but
okay.
It is real. If you know the story, it is really about how people go on with each other and what is in a marriage.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So from the audience here to Pak Yapi.
Yeah, Pak Hans, thank you for your valuable presentation on the history of the birth of the novel Manusia Bebas. I want to speak about Suwarsi position in Indonesian literary history, why he is not yet widely known in Indonesian history, in Indonesian students. I think that has two fundamental reasons. Firstly, the access to the novel is not widely available. For example, I get this novel from her daughter, Bu Dewi. But secondly, that more important for me, there hasn't been a serious research from Indonesian critics on the weight of her books, her works. Indonesia has limited literary critics such as H.B. Yassin, Professor Theo, that they have just like they can baptize some great Indonesian writers. In my opinion, if the access is more open, Suwarsi would attain a better position than the current her calls right now. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Yapi, for the additional information. So there are two. It's not many research about her. I think probably more research in the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands, there are indeed a few very good articles. I read them. I read Yassin, Mohammed, and there is another. I have it in my bag. There's an article in a book about forgotten writers, and which is also very good. But indeed, I didn't find too much. But in Holland, you find her name is. As I told you already, it is. I think maybe in Holland it is. They will a kind of een wederopstanding, a resurrection or something like that. The interest in the common history is really great at the moment, and especially also about literature. And her name is mentioned quite often, and that's also the reason why she was part of an enormous documentary which was broadcast last month. She's just really a substantial part of it, as an example for the not only the political movement, but also the spirit among people who wanted to build a new nation.
Yeah, in other words, she is more popular in Holland probably rather than here, because it's like on a television show, like we have Mata Najwa or something like that, but it's in the Netherlands, and in Indonesia we never had even that program. And when I was thinking about the program, the Dutch television spends lots of money for that documentary about Suarzi and also about other things in Indonesia, but they are flying from Holland to here with all the equipments and all the reporters, and then they were so spending, I think, quite a lot of money for the documentary. Okay, and I think the last question here on Zoom, I think, but I'm not sure because it's a very short. A question to Mr. The quote unquote many wives. Could it be that he was Muslim? I don't know who he was in this, but yeah, her background is basically is she a Muslim?
That is, you should ask that maybe to the family, but the impression that I got from her stories, in the one of the stories, she says that my father, he knew everything about the Quran. He could explain it. He did. People came to him for advice, for all that kinds of things. But she wrote. He never gave us a religious education. We had to pray every evening to clean our consciousness, and but that's all. But because he knew if he gives us, that means Suwarni and me, a religious education, is useless, because he knew we should choose our own way. And in fact, it is, and in the story that I quoted, you see that when the story in which the bullets fly through the house, the man and the wife, they are talking with each other. What shall we do now? It is, do you know how to pray? And then they say, yes, I remember my grandmother. She did it. So let's say her prayers. And then first they put the children under the bed, and then they prayed. So I think it's not so very religious.
Okay, so thank you very much. Very interesting. So I think now it's 1 minute past 1 already, and I think that I will not conclude anything. I think Pak Rio, can we have 1 minute of our lunchtime? Okay, Pak Rio, yes.
Maaf, saya penasaran gitu ya. Saya pakai bahasa Indonesia saja ya.
Oke, ya.
Supaya nggak begitu banyak kelirunya. kenapa Sugondo lebih Syahrir lebih terkenal daripada Sugondo gitu. Saya juga sebetulnya juga secara pribadi, meskipun saya belajar sejarah sejak tahun 87 gitu kan, tapi saya baru tahu Sugondo itu tokoh Sumpah Pemuda itu ketika Bu Dewi kasih saya buku ini. Jadi beberapa waktu lalu.
Ya.
Nah, karena saya pelajari lebih lanjut, kenapa kok Sugondo ini meskipun dia orang Tuban itu di Pantai Utara kan biasanya agak lebih 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 ekspresif gitu ya daripada orang-orang yang di pedalaman. Dan dia hidupnya juga di Pantai Utara terus dari Tuban, Brebes, Blora. Nah, itu tempat orang-orang yang agak keras. Berbeda dengan yang di Jogja, Solo yang lebih lembut. Nah, kenapa tadi saya bilang kenapa jadi kurang terkenal, meskipun dia sempat menjadi ketua Kongres Pemuda tahun 2008, ternyata dalam kehidupan sehari-hari beliau ini hampir sama sekali tidak berkegiatan di dunia politik. Dia lebih banyak berkegiatan dalam dunia pendidikan. Dia menjadi guru dan terus menjadi guru meskipun sempat juga terlibat di dunia politik, menjadi anggota Pendidikan Nasional Indonesia di bawah Syahrir. Ketika Syahrir ditangkap dan kemudian dia diasingkan, itu si Sugondo aman gitu kan. Tapi berapa tahun kemudian dia juga ditangkap, tapi kemudian dilepaskan. Karena tidak terbukti dia sebagai anggota partai. Di anggota partainya itu hanya ya seperti kita sekarang mungkin ya, aktivis X, partai X gitu, tapi dia tidak punya KTA. Nah, kalau kita melihat sekarang kan kita juga bisa memahami bagaimana orang di dunia politik jauh lebih terkenal daripada kita yang di dunia pendidikan yang adem ayem tapi menghasilkan orang-orang yang terkenal itu. Begitu saja mungkin Pak Oda. Terima kasih.
Okay, terima kasih Pak Rio. So thank you very much. I was just explaining to Hans, basically, although Sugondo was from North Coast, which is for us it's famous that they are the more outspoken people, but maybe because he was working in the education area and he was not an active member of the ID cards of any party. So maybe that he was not that, when Syahrir was captured, he was captured first and then released because they cannot prove that he is, part of that party. So, and also he was mentioning now, people from political parties are more popular than us teachers, right? So, yeah.
I think he was very careful. That is the feeling that I have. He was very careful, but later on he has been a minister in the 1950, only a few months, but he was a minister, and after that he was the chairman of the PSI in the Middle Java, Java Tengah.
Oh ya, pernah jadi menteri. Lalu pernah anggota PSI, tapi bukan PSI yang sekarang ya. Sekarang PSI. Now we have another PSI, Partai something Indonesia. Partai, what is it? Solidaritas. Solidaritas. So Partai Solidaritas Indonesia. That is the new PSI. In the past, PSI was Partai Sosialis Indonesia. So now there's a new one, but it's a different one. So he was also in that. Yeah.
Iya, dia memang pernah jadi menteri pada masa RIS.
Ya, ya.
Di Menteri Kemakmuran, tapi ya setelah RIS selesai pilih mundur dan tinggal di Kota Baru.
Yeah, yeah. So he decided to stop from that minister.
Pilih pensiun di muda, 46 tahun pensiun
46.
6.
So he decided to retire young, 46.
46.
Yeah.
So I'm preparing my retirement also.
Retired.
I should have retired a few years ago actually, because I'm staying in his house. So I should follow him, live an easy, not complicated life.
Do a good job. Go on.
Okay, so yeah, terima kasih Pak Rio tambahannya. Thank you very much. And I think we also have someone from Tuban. Ada yang dari Tuban. Mungkin saudaranya Pak Tugondo, but I'm not sure. Di Zoom ada yang dari Tuban. Saya kira itu Bapak Ibu, terima kasih. Thank you very much for your participation in this discussion. And now I'm giving back to Miss Eva.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hans Fischer and Bapak Oda Teda Ena MPD EDD. We had a wonderful conversation that enlightened our perspective. As a token of appreciation, the committee will give the certificate to our speaker and moderator. I would like to invite Mr. Hans Fischer and Bapak Oda Teda Ena MPD EDD to receive the token of appreciation. Now I would like to invite Bapak Gabriel Fajar Sasmita Aji as the chairperson of HISKI Komisariat Universitas Sanata Dharma to deliver the token of appreciation to our speaker. One, two, three. Once more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, please wait for a moment. I would like to invite all the participants in Kadarman room, for the photo session. Please come to the on stage for the photo session with the presenter and with the speaker and also for the moderator. Okay, once again, I will invite all the participants in Kadarman room to come on stage, the photo session with the speaker, moderator, and the chairperson of HISKI Komisariat Universitas Sanata Dharma. Oh, yeah. Kelihatan itu kelihatan Pak di depan itu Pak. Dari sana. Thank you very much and kindly back to your seat.
Ada penambahan.
I would like to say thank you for the speaker, the moderator, and all the participants of the discussion. See you in the next event of HISKI Komisariat Universitas Sanata Dharma, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Oh yeah, and also for additional information, please fill out the link of the attendance. Share on the Zoom meeting. Yeah, for the certificate. And also the committee have provided the lunch at the hall. Please enjoy it. Thank you.
Oh, dat is nice.
We have the diploma.
Ja. Toch nog, after all, I have a diploma from a university.